Returning to textbook section 7.3, we study a small church called an oratory located in the city of Ravenna and dedicated to Galla Placidia. Here's a portrait of Galla Placidia with her children. They look remarkably like people posing for a family portrait in the 1950s, but no, this is the 400s. And Galla Placidia has one of the wildest biographies imaginable, a life caught in the turmoil of the Roman Empire's chaotic transformation. The textbook explains that Galla Placidia was the daughter of a Roman emperor, Theodosius I, and wife of a Gothic king. What does that mean? Well, her dad, Theodosius, was the guy who made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. As for the Gothic king, to understand what that means, we need to step outside the orbit of Roman culture and briefly look at people who were outsiders in Rome, the tribes that the Romans called barbarians. Northern Europe was home to people who belonged to tribal cultures. The Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Lombards, the Vandals, the Franks, the Burgundians, the Saxons, the Angles, the Jutes, the Vikings. Most of these groups were semi-nomadic and were moving across Europe, as this map shows, in search of fertile farmland and warmer climates. Many of them settled in the Roman Empire. At the same time, a militaristic group known as the Huns, charged in from Central Asia, sweeping across Europe and causing fear and panic among these tribes, many of whom pressed into Rome as refugees. They coexisted more or less amicably for a while with the Romans, although their culture was different from the Romans. The Romans like to wear loose-fitting tunics because they're comfy and they expand when you get bigger. The Visigoths and the Ostrogoths wore fitted trousers, the kind of pants we wear today. They go back to the Goths. The Roman men mostly preferred a clean-cut hairstyle, a close-shaved face, a military look. The Goths wore full, furry beards and used butter or lard to style their hair. The snobby Romans thought that disgusting and smelly. They called these outsiders barbarians, a term of contempt. The word barbarian comes from Greek. It is actually a word that is based on the act of mocking strange speech, saying these people sound like they're saying barble, 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 barble. That strange speech is what evolved into English. You can see a battle between the Romans and the Goths in this carved relief sculpture from a sarcophagus. The sarcophagus is for a Roman military commander shown here in his Roman armor astride a horse with his soldiers, with their shields, their helmets, their Roman armor. And then below them are the barbarians, who are shown with their beards, and they're shown, if you look closely, in sort of a caricature, slightly grotesque looking. They're shown dying on the ground. Of course, none of the Romans are shown dying. And here you can see those trousers that the barbarians wore. Looks like workout gear for today. This barbarian is being trampled by the Roman soldier's horse. This scene of battle and tumult, of terror and stampede, is an interesting segue back to Galla Placidia. Rome's political situation grew increasingly chaotic. The battle you just saw in the sarcophagus showed victorious Romans, but in fact, the Goths were the ones to take advantage of Rome's increasing vulnerability. The Visigoths attacked Rome in 410, and Galla Placidia got carried off as a so-called war prize for the Visigoth king, who was then later murdered, and she was able to return home. It's all very complicated. The main point, though, is that the Goths are going to assume dominance in this region of the world. The Ostrogoths will take over the entire boot of Italy in 476 and topple the last Western Roman emperor. The future of Rome is going to be in the East.